As soon as I do something silly, we finally go live. Hey, everybody. I'm Haley Gray. I'm the founder of the Women's Entrepreneur Network. And I've got my friends here, Velma, Gallant, and Victoria Bentley. And tonight we are talking about balance. And not walking a balance beam and not passing a sobriety test.
And turn off your phone when you do a podcast, right?
Right?
That just keeps beeping at me. So enough is that.
You're going to have to quit being quite so popular.
Hey, no more phone. Yay.
Yay, no more phone, right?
Yay.
Although, seriously, we're talking about balance tonight. And I think that is a really, really important topic because this is very much not a do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing. I actually practice. I actually very much practice balance in my life. Yeah, y'all, sometimes people think I work around the clock and I'm always working and I'm always on the computer and I'm always doing stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
That's
what part of that isn't true?
What part of that is not true? Well, every day I sleep 8 to 9 hours. I try to get exercise almost every day. I'm not exercising as much at the moment because I tore a calf muscle. So I'm trying to stay off of it. That was one of my Christmas gifts to myself. But it's also like, scheduling family time for dinner, scheduling time with my husband every day, scheduling time to walk the dogs. We have a shredder that likes to shred everything. Although she was not the one that shredded the box on my bed today. And
did you do it?
No, Brandy did it. The other dog did it. The innocent one, the perfectly behaved one did it. And, I spend time with the dog park every day and people try to, schedule calls for that time when I'm at the dog park. And I'm like, nope, sorry. I have a standing appointment. So I'm sure people think I'm like in appointments all the time. And sometimes those appointments are, going to the gym or, getting my physical checkups, getting my skin checks, doing, self-care, meditation, whatever. Those are part of my calendar. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big believer.
And I think that's important to schedule it in. Nap time.
Yeah.
Why did we fight those when we were kids? I love them.
I actually fight them as an adult now because I have discovered this little problem with myself that if I have my way, I will sleep for about 3 hours and then I'll be awake until about 4 o'clock in the morning. And in about 3 or 4 days, I can almost completely flip my schedule and get my days and nights completely reversed. So I've learned if I don't nap, I can avoid the whole 24-hour day-night schedule flip.
Makes me wonder if we should actually have like 26 hours in a day.
Take care of that, will you?
Yeah.
Well, balance. So I have spent the entire week, I said to myself, this will take 3 or 4 hours. And when I tell you 30 hours, maybe more, I decided I was going to put more order in my life. I was going to empty the closets, empty the shelves. Hey, be sweet. I was going to get everything in, put, instead of it all in a pile, it was going to be this goes here and this goes here and this goes here. And I have succeeded, and it became contagious because my husband said, that looks like a good idea. I think I'll do my closet. And it's amazing how when things are, to get this project done, I had to take everything out of the closet and put it in a pile so that we could figure out A, B, C, D, right? It was very hard to sleep in the same room with the chaos. It felt very out of balance. I don't know if you're like that, but I find that
a lot of clutter in a room will actually, and I can't have a lot of clutter in my office. If I'm talking to a friend, sometimes I will actually sit here and put stuff away in my office because I can't deal with clutter.
I can't either. And is that a getting older thing? Because, when I was a teenage girl, I had a messy room and I never paid it any mind at all. I never thought. But now as an adult, I need things in order. I need to know where the salt and the pepper are. I need to know, where my favorite lipstick is.
I've actually seen it like with my younger daughter who in high school would color coordinate her locker. Her room might look like a snake pit, but her locker was totally color coordinated. And I've actually seen it like in her apartment. Everything is very much, pretty much everything has a place and everything in its place. And it's not like she makes her bed every single day, because I see pictures on and off, right? But they keep it picked up. They keep things put away. There's not piles everywhere. And I find it really interesting. And then I see her come home and dump everything in her bedroom. And it's kind of interesting from an energetic perspective to kind of sit here and watch and go, oh, look at that. Not the best experience, right? And so I really do think that there's a lot to be said for, no matter where you are, minding the mess and the piles and the stuff. And I mean, the more crap I get out of my bedroom, the better I do.
I was going to say, my productivity goes up exponentially with the number of plates that are spinning in the room. I need to turn down the noise if I want to get stuff done. And
oh, absolutely.
I have found, and you talk about getting your hours turned around, holiday time, being busy. I find that I'm in the kitchen late at night, or I'm making a loaf of bread, or I'm getting, and so I prefer getting things done when the house is very quiet. The dogs are sleeping, Mark's asleep, the phone isn't ringing, the doorbell isn't, there's nobody there, and
that's frequently my most productive time. Is late at night when people are asleep. My husband is the opposite. He gets up early in the morning and does.
I can't do it. I'm just not a morning person.
Oh no, but like it's the opposite thing, right? The house is quiet, the dogs are asleep, nobody's moving, and he's up before it. And in fact, sometimes I'm going to bed shortly before he's getting up. We are like almost that kind of polar opposites, but it's the same thing. The house is quiet, nobody's moving yet, and he can focus. He can get some exercise in. He can do his thing.
Yeah, and it was funny last night. I was sitting with my journal, and I had slept for a while, and then I woke up, and I don't know what woke me up, but something woke me up about 3:15, and I sat and I wrote for a while, and there were some things that I needed to sort out, some things that were on my plate that I needed to come up with answers to. It was amazing to me how I wasn't looking at the clutter, and how the peace and the quiet and the answers just come. Especially when you've got a bunch of dogs and cats nearby, and they're all snoring, and everything is so nice. Everything is perfect for that little bit of time. All's right with the world. Now get your stuff done, and then you can turn out the light. It was kind of
I mean, we're at that point in time right now, kind of in our house, because it's 9:15 p.m. and cats are snuggling in their respective spots. I had one behind me earlier over here, and then this one's over here. The dog is in her bed. They're kind of, they're tucking in for the next few hours, and
when the sun goes down. Yeah,
they do. And, the cats are a little bit nocturnal. They'll get up and they'll move around a bit at night, but mostly, they're older, so they just snuggle in. And I mean, for me, it's this peaceful time of day where I don't have all of the binging and booping and people messaging me that I'm actually the most productive. It's when I get a lot of the copy written. It's when I get a lot of websites done. It's when I get a lot of the stuff, the actual like running of my business done, because it's quiet. And it may seem like I'm working late into the night, and yes, to some extent I am, but I also took off. Y'all don't know it, but I'll tell you, I took off from about 5 till about 8:30, taking dogs to the park, coming home, eating dinner, taking dogs out for a second walk, and then going grocery shopping. So I was out for hours and hours, but I'm sure to everybody else, it looked like I was online the whole time. And that's the miracle of scheduling.
I think it's important when you talk about balance to know what your groove is. That 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. groove. If that's what works, then use it.
Your power hour.
Yeah.
And to me, it varies a little bit, but it's like honoring like what my body does and when my body does it. Y'all, you're never I mean, there's a lot of BNI groups that I've looked at lately. They meet too early in the morning for me to get up. So I've just decided I'm not enough of a morning person to be up and at an 8 a.m. or a 7:30 a.m. BNI meeting. There's, I won't say there's no amount of business that would make me do it. I mean, but there's not enough business generated from it to be worth disturbing my sleep cycle that much. And then feeling like, monkey brains for 3 days because I disturbed my sleep cycle. So I prefer to not schedule early morning calls if I can help it. Or, whatever. So I pay attention to your sleep and how it's being affected by things.
Yep. I think for women, sleep is one of the first things that gets sacrificed. It starts young. When you have children, you get in the groove of being up all night long, and that's what you have to do. But then you never really get home. I didn't hear you.
When you're young, it's the dating and then the kids. Dating, I was up till all hours of the night. And then when my son showed up, then you're up late. And now I'm old and it's like, no, I need my sleep. Otherwise you get cranky.
I've always needed my sleep. I don't function well. And I actually, I nursed all 4 of my kids, some longer than others. It just depended on the kid. In the scenario, because one of my kids was a preemie and, all the things. But, I really learned, and my husband learned, we learned how to break it up so we could both get sleep, because I was working full time as a software engineer, as a programmer, and I couldn't do without sleep. And in fact, one of the things that I learned very early on is that I cannot burn the candle at both ends on the weekends doing home projects or cleaning the house or doing whatever, and then turn around and work a 5-day work week. I may think I can.
No, you'll pay.
And it would kill my productivity for the entire week, and I would be exhaustipated. And exhaustipation is when you are too tired to give a crap. And I mean, I just literally would be so exhausted that I couldn't focus, and trying to write code and trying to focus and trying to do all the things, with kids doesn't work when you're too exhausted, and our brains don't do it. I mean,
no, we weren't meant to multitask. We weren't meant to, short burns are one thing. So you got a deadline on something. Yeah, you're going to spend extra hours getting the project done, but you can't do that on an ongoing basis. I work with someone who's done that on an ongoing basis, and the health price that gets paid, that it kind of sneaks up on you, and all of a sudden you're in big trouble.
Well, I think that's why, Shabbat is such a thing in the Jewish faith. And, you look at the Sabbath and taking a day off a week. They actually tried back in Roman times to do a 10-day work week, with 1 or 2 days off at the end. And they found that people would literally be collapsing with exhaustion. You can't do a 10-day cycle because the human body just isn't built for it. That 7-day cycle is really,
how we were wired.
It is fundamental to our wiring. And I find that if I do not take 1 day a week and refresh and renew, whatever that means to me, I am absolutely worthless. And for me, it's pretty much unplugging from the computer and sleeping a good portion of the day and just getting out, walking and exercising. And I'm really not on the computer much.
It's an interesting thing that you brought up, but the Shabbat, and it's like, and he rested on the 7th day. I mean, it's written, it's the example, and God said that's how it is. You do that.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I think that there is a lot of examples of that throughout, a lot of religious texts, and it kind of makes you go, maybe there's something to it. Just like, observing certain dietary restrictions. If you go digging into it, like, why don't you eat meat and dairy together? Oh yeah, calcium and iron bind to each other. So there's all these like weird things that we've discovered over time about our bodies that, we have to honor it. I mean, we may not know why these things are there, but darn it, if they don't turn out to be kind of true with alarming frequency. And I think that rest period and, minding ourselves is important.
So where do you lack balance?
Where do I lack balance? You know what? I think that my personal balance lackage, y'all are going to laugh, is that my hobby is my work and my work is my hobby. So sometimes I can be very intense because I'm all about, figuring out what the algorithm is doing this week and creating social media graphics and writing blog posts and doing all the things. And my entertainment stuff is like what most people would consider work.
Well, it's one of those things though that when it jazzes you and lights you up, then it does in a lot of ways adds energy to you. I know for myself, it's planning fun.
Mm-hmm.
is the one that I have, because I'm always like, I've always got the goals or that kind of thing. And it's like, but if I'm not doing this, then I'm not going to get that. If I'm not doing this, then I'm not going to get that. And a little bit of a lack mentality. And the reality is if I don't incorporate the fun,
Mm-hmm.
I will burn out. And I've done that. And it's taken me a while to finally see the pattern.
Well, and the other thing too is that I'm not always good about like, one of the things I would really like more in my life is more time with friends. But the reality is I'm an introvert too. So I struggle with this balance between spending time with friends and I need to desperately be unplugged and nobody to talk to me. My poor little introverted, extroverted self, like needs to be in, sitting in her docking station in the corner, but she also wants to go out and go play at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, I call myself an omnivert. I live on the spectrum of vert.
I like that. The spectrum of vert. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of that. A lot of people are like, oh, you're such an extrovert. I'm like, I like to go hang out with people, but getting me out of the house can be a little tricky at times.
I think it's volume too, how much, right? Like a couple of times a year, I love going to the big gatherings and there's lots of people there to meet and everything like that. And I really, really enjoy the small gatherings with groups of people and I really enjoy the one-on-ones with people. That's why I say spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel you. I'm right there with you. And I mean, I think that to me is one of the challenges for balance is like, I cherish relationships, but large groups, not as much. I can do it a few times a year, but it's exhausting. If I'm in front of a large group speaking, it's a very different thing than like I'm a member of a large group of people interacting with one another. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of interesting, like observing how your energy works, that vertness, right? What about you, Victoria? Where are you out of balance?
When I really like something, be a bowl of pasta or a book, it's hard to put the book down. It's hard to, you get full when you eat, so that's maybe not a good example, but it can be kind of all or nothing. When I'm really having fun, it
hyper focus can be a thing, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And why have 3 dogs when you can have 10? I just, you know what I mean?
I have no idea what that's like.
Well, and I don't either, but I often feel there's no such thing as too much of a good thing.
Let's see, says the woman I'm the one who has 4 kids and 3 dogs and currently 3 cats, but we've had as many as 5. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And I led 4 Girl Scout troops at one time. Yeah, no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. So
if someone's good, more must be better, right?
Right. And I don't even know what you call that, but
yeah.
Like, let's just keep going. This is so fun. So why not you know,
Yeah, more
do
and
you
more and
remember
more.
when you were a little kid and you'd have a friend stay over and it's like, well, why go to sleep? We're having fun. Let's talk all night long. Well, you kind of got to go to sleep and you.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, Jazz. Yeah. And too much of a good thing is a great thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Up to a point,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Until you
that's
go off the deep end.
yeah, yeah. And
Uh-huh.
and I think that as we age, our lives aren't quite as forgiving. You know, you can do a lot of late nights in your 20s, but man, you can't do it at my age. It's just not, you just don't have the reserve.
No,
So,
and I find that even now I don't have the reserve. I don't know that I ever have. To be totally transparent, I don't know that I've ever really had that like reserve like some of my classmates at Duke had. I'll be darned if some of those guys, I mean, when I was at Duke, it was a weekend executive MBA program. We would go Friday and we go all the day to class. And then some of these guys, they would fly in from like the West Coast or wherever, and they would be here. And Friday night, they would go out to Franklin Street in Chapel Hill. And that's where all the bars are at UNC Chapel Hill. And UNC Chapel Hill and Duke are like 8 or 10 miles from each other. And they would party hard until the bars shut down. And they would come stumbling back into the hotel at Duke at, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'll be darned if those guys would not be up, standing in class, at 7:45 in the morning. And they'd be there until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they'd hop back on a plane and go again. And I was just like, holy mackerel. I couldn't do it. I did not have the physical stamina to do that. And in fact, when I was in the program, I literally would come home and I didn't do anything for 24 hours.
Yeah.
I would eat and I would kind of be like, and I wouldn't even study anything for 24 hours because my brain would refuse to like lock and load. I mean, I couldn't do it. And I would come home and I would sleep 12 to 24 hours and I would eat and I would finally wake up and then I'd be like, okay, I can function again. And then back to the salt mines. But I don't know how some of these people do it. And it was like, holy cow, guys, what are you on? Because
I think they're probably on their kids' Concerta or Adderall or whatever, which when I went to law school, that was the big thing. People were selling their kids Adderall and Ritalin, I guess is what it was. This was 30 some years ago. So I think it was probably Ritalin, right. And that's how people got through. But I also think you get what you need. And I've told you about when I was in graduate school, I did one shift at law school, one shift at the hospital, and then 11 to 7, I slept with a beeper because I was on call to go out and, restart IV lines or, take care of somebody who got sick in the night. I was an oncology nurse. So a lot of my patients were dying. So you'd have to get up and depending. Yeah. So, but I did that and then graduated 96 pounds after 3.5 years, got divorced in the process, moved, all that stuff. I mean, every major life event, and my mother died. All of it was crammed into that 3.5 years. But after that time, it took me over 3 years to recover. I was just fragile and not really able to learn. I was just go. And people say, do you remember such and such back? And no, I don't remember. I don't remember certain courses I took. I don't need them, but I did what I had to do. But oh my gosh, I couldn't do that for a month today, much less 3.5 years.
Yeah. I think that, my story was very similar to yours in some ways. My mom died the week before I started at Duke. And so me being the child who was I got to be the one who was executor of the estate. And my dad was still alive and they were married when my mom passed. And so my dad actually fell a couple of weeks before my mom passed. And when she was in the ICU receiving last rites, I had him in the emergency room at the same time in the hospital. And the staff very kindly showed me the back passageway to get between the two. and they did last rites on her and got him shipped out of the hospital and sent home. And we had home health come in, and he needed 24/7 care from that point forward until he passed 6 weeks after I graduated. And it was insane. And I was,
And 4 kids.
and 4 young children. My youngest was 4, my oldest was 12 when I started. And I was leading Girl Scout troops and all the things. And God bless my husband for supporting me. I mean, it took an entire village. For sure. It definitely was a process, study until midnight, up at 7, meet with the personal trainer. The personal trainer would come bang on the door twice a week because that was the only way I was working out.
I'm finding the older I get, my lists of what I need to do have shifted quite a bit.
Say more about that.
The priorities, what is important to me is very clearly shifting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding that in order to be more productive, I need to put the play in. If I don't put the play in, it goes like this. And
sure.
And then I have to rest for longer than I really want to, and then I can get back up there. But I've been doing that on a cycle of, but I have to do this, and I would push it until I crash. And so that's part of my shift this year, is making sure that I incorporate the play as part of it, so I'm doing like this for rests instead of this and then this, right?
Why do we do that to ourselves?
It makes me, I wonder, somewhere along the line, I felt that I had to have these goals, and I had to do these things, because if I wasn't, then I'm either not good enough, or I'm not, it's how I discern my value, or those kinds of things, or comparison, like that comparisonitis, disease of identity, right? Because it'd be like, well, so-and-so, I need to be able to do that too, because so-and-so is doing that.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, it's a thing. I mean, I've done this and this kind of a thing. And I mean, I find that I just crash so hard. One of the things that I've learned about myself, my mother was fairly bipolar. So I learned to recognize the mania and the depression. And one of the things that I started to recognize in myself was some of those tendencies, not to the extent that my mother had them. Probably in my early 30s, I started noticing that. And so one of the things that I had to
you make sure you get sleep, and you make sure you get food, and you make sure that you get help you need. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Or I was going to crash. And when I crash, for me, what always ended up happening, and still will if I push, is that I literally will become unproductive for weeks at a time. So for instance, the surgery that I had on my face, because of the physical strain of that, for me, that part of the way that manifests itself in the recovery is that it will actually mean that I have a harder time concentrating. Forget building websites or fixing stuff in some of the more complex problem solving skills that I have to have in my business, because my brain is not going to do it. And so I've learned that I have to like slow way the heck down when I go through stuff like that.
I think it's wonderful that you've developed the awareness of, I'm getting to the hard stop here. I'm getting to the point of no return.
I don't just do this, but I go into the ground. I mean, like face plant, like,
lawn dart.
Yeah, lawn dart, like right into the ground. Like, oh my gosh, like, I feel almost like Wile E. Coyote sometimes. With the Acme, anvil coming down. There you go. And I think that it's important to recognize what your body does and does not do.
Yeah. And balance is something. Balance is, wow.
Balance
is something that I don't always recognize until I'm in trouble. You know, like, oh, gee, what was I thinking? I wasn't eating well. Oh, gee, what was I thinking? I wasn't getting enough sleep. You know, and then you're behind the 8 ball.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's the way December was for me, because I was crashing. There was a lot of activity going on, and I find that when I crash emotionally, mentally, and physically. And then I realized this happens to me almost every December. And which is, of course, you know, winter solstice, the shortest day, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, it took me 50 some years to catch on to this pattern.
Yeah. And I found that I crash in December too. You know,
a lot of people struggle with December.
I do. It's my birthday month. And Christmas used to be so magical for me. It is not anymore.
Well, I pulled out my sad light this month, partway through the month, because I'm like, okay, so if it's always December, and December's the shortest day, and they talk a lot about that seasonal whatever deficit.
Disorder,
yeah. What if that's it for me? So I'm like, okay, so what do I do about it? So I brought that thing out, and I turn it on when I'm making breakfast and doing my journaling and stuff like that. So I'm like, what's the worst that happens? It doesn't do anything. And then I started bringing in some of my summer food too.
I developed a template, we'll say, for journaling that has helped me a great deal with keeping in the day, keeping current, so things don't get away from me, so balance doesn't get away from me. And maybe we can do a show. I'll get the paperwork to each of you ahead of time, and then we can talk about it and maybe share this with our listeners, because it's very simple. Anybody can follow this. And somebody showed me something like it, and I turned it into my own. And a lot of this starts with gratitude, that if you start out with, I've got what I need, I'm grateful for what I have, thank you, that often is a very good starting place for now, okay, what do we need to address and what do we have to fix here? And it doesn't seem so overwhelming. And
yeah,
I would enjoy sharing that and showing how I used it. And one of the things that I do is I keep track of everything when I do it. And I don't always do it, but I need to do it when life gets very complicated, is I keep track of everything I eat and drink, because you see how you're not taking care of yourself. And you have physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual needs. And are they all being taken care of? Because you can be working out all day long, but you don't sit down to have a prayer of gratitude. Right. Or you can be reading all day long and, like, why does my neck hurt? Right? Sitting at the computer all day, things like that. It's an awareness tool to keep you in balance. So
that's cool.
Yeah. I'll share that with you, and then we can do with it what we want. But
I have gratitude. I do gratitudes first thing in the morning. It's a
great way to start your day.
99% of my days.
Grateful
I try
for
to
breathing
every single day.
I used to. I don't always do it. I used to be much better at that. But it comes in when I got to get back into that because I really need it, and then you do what you need to do. But I'm really glad you suggested this topic of balance to remind us, like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you doing what you need to do?
And why not start our year out from that?
Right.
Absolutely.
With the right pattern, with the right prescription.
Whatever your right pattern is. Because it's not
is it 6 hours of sleep? Is it 8 hours of sleep? Are you drinking enough water? Um,
Yeah.
Are you getting your fill of people, whatever
Right.
that is? And I
Totally.
think, like Velma said, the wintertime is a hard time for a lot of people. I was out with a group today, and people were saying, "Oh, these short days, they're really hard." And yeah, it is really hard for some people, and they notice it and they mind it. And to be mindful of this, to get ahead of it, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
next year, come December 1, Velma's gonna drag out the sad light, or I'll send her a note to do it before you need it. Hey, let's
It'll
turn
be
it
my
on.
birthday present to you. The light comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me it'll probably start in at the beginning of November. I might as well get a jump on it instead of waiting until I'm feeling
Thank
the
you,
effect,
Jessica.
right? Yeah.
You're above the 45th parallel, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's different. It's very different for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Or I could be a snowbird.
sounds
You
like
could
a
come to
great
North
plan.
Carolina.
It was 60 degrees today in Pennsylvania. I'll take it. January 4th and it's 60
Almost
degrees.
70. It was almost 20 degrees Celsius here today.
Isn't it fabulous? I love
Oh,
I mean,
Maybe
you
it'll
need to
be
come to
20
North
next
Carolina. Come visit
I could
North
do that. Well, because then it's still nice enough to go out during the day, right?
Mhm,
And get into the sun. Whereas
And
here,
get your fix of sunshine as opposed to freezing or
yeah,
slipping and falling in the ice, right? Yeah, North
Yeah.
Carolina is a beautiful place to live. I'm with you, Haley. It's kind of a perfect place, kind of in the middle, not too hot, not too cold.
Mhm.
Goldilocks is like in North Carolina. So
it sounds like balance to me.
Balance. I like it.
Florida.
Well, cool. Thank y'all for coming
Thank
and
you.
hanging out with me tonight and all the lovely comments. And yeah, we'll do this again soon. Take care, y'all. See
Take
you
care.
next week.
See you.
Take care.